10 on the dot, so we're going to get started. I know that we're going to have a few folks filtering in as we get started here, but hopefully my intro will allow them to settle. Um, Welcome. Good morning, everybody. This is the Apprenticeship Innovation AIF informational webinar. My name is Jean-Marie Duval, and I'm facilitating today's webinar. I am joined this morning by Ben Palazzolo and Kevin Gong from our funding team, but we also, I'm so pleased to present our chief, Adele Burns. She's here today as well. And before I turn the mic over to them, I just want to remind everyone that this is a webinar and that you're all muted, but we do encourage you to enter your questions into the chat. We have someone on the chat who's answering questions live, but we are also going to try to reserve a little bit of time at the end of the webinar for your questions. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Adele.
All right. Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here to talk to you about apprenticeship innovation funding. So this is the fourth round of AIF, and we just opened up on February 10th, and today we're going to dive into all the details. I'm going to give a little overview. So Ben, if you want to go to the next slide, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview and the definition of terms. And then hand the mic over to Ben to dive deep into all of the details of AIF support, the training side, all of the mechanics of that, a little bit about the award framework. And for those of you who have received AIF in the past, there are some tweaks and adjustments this year that are going to happen. So glad you're here to get that full download on those tweaks and adjustments. And as was mentioned, we do hope to have a bit of time for questions. Again, reinforce and encourage folks to put their questions into the Q&A, and we have a team here to address those questions, if not during the session, then afterwards. So yeah, with that, we will dive in. So next slide. So really, the overarching objective with the apprenticeship innovation funding is really to help create a whole ecosystem, a supported ecosystem of apprenticeship intermediaries, and really specifically apprenticeship program sponsor intermediaries. And when it's the word intermediaries, what we're really talking about is the organization that steps up to be the convener of the different stakeholders at the table in an apprenticeship. And of course, convening that table, those essential partners first and foremost include employers, who are the folks who are really going to be employing the apprentices and providing that on-the-job training. But just as important is also bringing together the educators who educate the apprentices with those relevant training skills to the apprenticeship. And we, of course, we know we play a role as the government being the entity that you are registering with. And so it is often that intermediary that's bringing together these players and then registering with us. And of course, the apprentices, we're all here to create these earn and learn opportunities for the apprentices, and also recognize that community-based organizations, workforce boards, and unions often come and play an important seat at this table as well. So we recognize that it entails bringing together all of these different stakeholders in order to launch and scale an apprenticeship. And as many of you are well aware, there's lots of grants out there to try to get this started, but really apprenticeship innovation funding is intended to help be hopefully that sustainability, part of that sustainability equation to help these program sponsor intermediaries to be able to scale to support more apprentices and more uh, somehow you have joined us. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's the overarching. If you can go to the next slide. So really with AI, role of these program sponsor intermediaries is to aggregate the needs of multiple employers, to bring employers and educators together to then register the program with us, and then very importantly, recruit, place, and support apprentices through their journey. And ultimately, we hope that this funding allows you to run, scale your program. So There's a lot of different entities that can play this role of the program sponsor intermediary, and all of these entities are eligible to receive AIF funding as long as they are the registered apprenticeship program sponsor with us at DAS. So it could be a union board, educational institutions, regional consortiums, nonprofits, industry associations, staffing agencies, public sector entities. So through the application process to AIF, you'll identify which of the entities is going to be the primary recipient, and we recognize that often a program is run with a committee of these stakeholders. So all of these different entity types are eligible to receive AIF as long as they are the ones playing that role of a program sponsor. All right, next slide. So some other important context. The eligibility for AIF, the intent of AIF is really to help scale apprenticeship and utilized as much. And how we organize the oversight apprenticeship in California is that we have two different oversight committees. So we have the California Apprenticeship Council, which oversees the traditional building and fire trades. And separately, we have the Interagency Advisory Committee of Apprenticeships, also known as IACA. So you'll hear that terminology throughout this presentation today. And so IACA is referring to the umbrella advisory over all of the apprenticeships in, sometimes it's called new and innovative, called traditional, really all of the sectors that are not building and fire trades. So this includes healthcare, tech, education, advanced manufacturing, but really fundamentally any sector that is not involved in either fire trades or public works building trades apprentice. You are of IACA, that is what makes you eligible to receive AIF funding. So these are just some a little bit of high level and some of the terminology you'll hear used throughout this presentation. And really the overarching philosophy of AIF is to try to help IACA apprenticeships to sustain and scale. So with that context, I'm going to hand the microphone over to
Oh, I think, thanks so much, Adele. I think it just
Yep.
clipped out at the very end. So great timing. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Palazzolo. I manage the portion of the funding team in DAS that oversees AIF, and I'm happy to talk to you about this round of funding and all the details. Like was mentioned previously, please put your questions in the chat. There'll be opportunity for a Q&A at the end of this meeting, and further opportunities in the future for to get your questions answered. So we'll just jump into it. As was mentioned, traditional building trades, apprenticeship programs have a long established system of funding, such as the CAC Training Fund grants. The funding for AIF was created to address the challenge for scaling and sustaining IACA programs. Funding was allocated from the state's general fund in the fiscal year 2022-23 and 23-24. And a portion of this funding was allocated awarded during each of the last three rounds of AIF. And now for round 4, we have about $22.3 million available for awards. There are two categories of AIF funding: AIF support, or AIF-S, and AIF training, or AIF-T. AIF support covers the cost of operating an apprenticeship program. Even if this funding doesn't reimburse all the costs, the aim is to significantly offset the program sponsors' ongoing expenses. Funding for AIF awards is $3,500 per active apprentice per year of participation during, and in this case for round 4, during the 2025 calendar year, prorated to the month. And that's a term that's going to be mentioned a couple times during this presentation. So I want to take a minute to just explain what that means. Prorated to the month means that if an apprentice is only active or is active for fewer than 12 months during that calendar year, the funding for the apprentice is going to be a fraction of that 3,500, equal to the number of months they participated divided by 2. Additionally, AIF funds $1,000 per apprentice completion. Now, AIFT covers the cost of training apprentices incurred by local education agency, or LEA, working with an apprenticeship program. This funding functions alongside existing related and supplemental, or RSI, funding. RSI is typically more utilized for CAC, occupation apprentices, and AIFT kind of fills that gap for training IACA occupation apprentices. The funding amount is benchmarked to the hourly RSA rate that's set each year. Listed here is $10.32 per training hour. AIF funding is only accessible to IACA apprenticeship programs that are registered with DAS. These are programs that have already launched, but could benefit from funding for sustainability and scaling up, basically operational costs. This is not a typical grant. Sometimes there is some confusion about that. So again, I want to take a moment just to differentiate AIF from what most people think of as a typical grant. This AIF is a reimbursement model based on a formula. There's no competitive application process. An application is required, but its purpose is to ensure that the applicant is eligible and that their expenses meet their requirements. AIF, unlike a grant, is based on past performance. It's reimbursement for past expenses. There is no reporting requirement or agreement to provide future services like a typical grant. Applications for reimbursement are based on apprentices served and expenses incurred during 2025. The previous calendar year for round 4, this round, it's going to be looking to 2025. The funding formula is calculated based on apprentices that participate in 2025. Unlike previous years, all applications will be processed following the April 17th deadline for submission. It's not going to be in batches as it was done during previous rounds. Eligible entities can apply for either AIFS, AIFT, or both. A common scenario is an apprenticeship program could have its program sponsor, such as a union, apply for AIFS funding, and then the program's LEA apply for AIFT funding. Another scenario is if an LEA is also the lead program sponsor, it could apply for both AIFS and AIFT funding. All right, so to be included for that formula calculation, apprentices must be associated with IACA occupations, active during the 2025 calendar year, and placed with an employer. They cannot be registered with DAS as firm agreed to train, meaning that they have not been placed with an employer yet. This is one reason it's really important for programs to update their information about employers their apprentices are placed with. Apprentices are required to have compensation that meets the new higher ETP wage benefits. These amounts are calculated based on the new higher trainee wages for 2025. Compensation packages should be calculated as an hourly wage plus the value of annual health benefit package, then divided by 2,080 hours that represent a full year of full-time employment. Health benefits may include healthcare, dental, and vision, and $2.50 per hour's worth of health benefits may be included towards the value of the wage package of an apprentice in order to meet this wage threshold. So some key milestones for the application timeline for this round are, in addition, so we see that first date that was previously mentioned, the 10th is when applications open. We have today's date for this information session that we're all participating in together right now. We're going to have 2 office hours on the 3rd at 10 a.m. and the 17th at 10 a.m. For more questions and answers about any specific challenges or uncertainties that applicants have. The key date that I would love all of you to remember, the one that I want everyone to walk away from here with, is that April 17th at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time is the deadline for applications. Then DAS is going to evaluate corrections and applications in April. We aim to wrap up in August. During this time, that eligibility evaluation, DAS will issue any necessary corrections and work with applicants on getting their applications in order. So that first submission deadline is when the application needs to be submitted to us and all the components, but that doesn't include the correction process. That's going to happen after the 17th. 17th is when the application needs to be submitted. And then we estimate the payment window to be from August through October of this year. So as mentioned earlier, AIFS funding is for funding the ongoing operation of apprenticeship programs of IACA occupations. We talked about the funding allocation, again, $3,500 per active apprentice in 2025, prorated by month, with a $1,000 completion bonus per apprentice completion. This calculation is completed for the previous calendar year for all apprentices registered with DAS and placed with an employer. The registered sponsor for an apprenticeship program is eligible to apply for AIFS. And that sponsor is the entity responsible for the creation, operation, maintenance, and sustainability of a program. These include the entities listed here, intermediaries, labor management partnership organizations, etc. The components for the applications are the same as the previous round, and then the method for submission hasn't changed. So we have the web analytics or CAS report that the program sponsors may access online, download, and submit. The fiscal entity designation, communicating what entity receives the award that's signed by the program committee. The fiscal reporting documents, that includes the expense report and expense narrative, the cover sheet of the application, and the 204 and 205 forms. All these documents, when completed, are emailed to aif@dir.ca.gov. And again, that magical date, we want to make sure to submit that full package by April 17th at 12 noon. So something that's been further clarified this year, programs that charge apprentices unreasonable fees are not eligible for AIFS funding. To be considered reasonable, fees charged to apprentices must meet all of the following criteria. They follow an apprentice's application to a program, meaning they're not part of the application. They can't be more than $500, and they can only cover the cost of learning supplies or equipment needed for the job. If a program charges apprentices a fee that don't meet all of these requirements, again, they're not eligible for AIFS funding. So every applicant will have to indicate on their cover page, you can see a snapshot at the right, whether they do or do not charge apprentices a fee. Programs that do charge a fee will need to explain the fee in detail in their expense narrative. Those details meaning the amount and what that fee, what cost that covers. All right, so generating that CAS report. You want to make sure that your information is updated before generating the report. The training firm is correct, the apprenticeship wage, the health benefit package valued at an hourly rate, the number of OJT hours completed, number of hours, the RSI hours completed, again, both for 2025. If the report looks incomplete, wait 24 hours. The CAS databases update once a day. You want to double check, especially that wage level and the location align to meet eligibility. So now the fiscal entity designation for AIFS, only one entity from a joint apprenticeship and training committee or unilateral apprenticeship and training committee can receive funding. So that's why I got to designate what that one entity is. A letter needs to be provided as part of the application that's signed by all the members of a committee, designating the entity to receive the award payment. The letter needs to include the program name registered with DAS and the DAS file number, the printed names, organizations, and signatures for all the committee members, and then we'll validate this letter with the committee that the program designated when registering the program. In the case of a single employer program that doesn't have a committee, or a committee wasn't created as part of their standards, then the employer may apply directly for AIF support reimbursement and no letter is required. But the fiscal entity must still be designated on the cover sheet. So the expense report, its purpose is to categorize and total all the expenses incurred during the 2025 calendar year that the applicant wants reimbursed. Eligible categories for these expenses include staff salaries and travel, marketing costs, apprentice support services, employer incentives, operating expenses, contractual services. The guidance document has a more detailed list than I could go through here during this presentation, so definitely want to reference that. Programs need to keep records and receipts for use of funds for a period of 3 years in the case that there is an audit, in which case DAS will need to have access to those documents. So hold on a second. The expense narrative is supposed to provide a real detailed description of each expense and how it fits into each category. And then on the right here, we have our list of all the different components necessary for the application. Here's an example that I wanted to read through. So a lot of times the corrections with expense narratives ask for more detail. So I will read through this example for an expense narrative. Let's say a travel expense for $1,192.80. On some applications, it might say travel or travel to a recruitment event. So ideally, it could say recruitment of potential apprentices at 5 high school job fairs, 2 at Hillside High School in Marin City, 2 at Lincoln High School in East Petaluma, 1 at Richardson High School in Roanoke Park. Those are schools that I made up for this example. 2 program representatives and 2 current apprentices drove to and from the event in 3 different vehicles on March 2nd, 15th, April 30th, October 11th, and October 23rd in 2025 for a total of 123 miles, has the reimbursement rate, 72 cents per mile. 10 stipends of $75 were given to the 2 representatives for use of their vehicle for the hauling of promotional materials to and from the event. So this really spells out what this expense was for, where the traveling took place, who was involved, why the traveling was needed. It spells everything out. Every travel expense doesn't have to have exactly this level of detail, but this fictitious example kind of provides the level of detail that ideally was going to be in the application. Here's another example for contractual service expense that would be in the narrative in section K. XYZ Educational Consulting was paid $37,500 for strategic program planning. This included 6 virtual planning meetings with our program director and lead instructors, development of a 2-year strategic plan, review of internal performance metrics for the programs. This work was conducted by the consultant from January 3rd, 2025 through March 17th, 2025. Again, there's some dates about when the work occurred, what was being paid for, who is involved in the programs, just really that broader picture of what's being paid for. This narrative is the main means for DAS to verify all the expenses in the expense report. So again, it's really important to include as much detail as you can. All right, so now we're going to switch over to the AIFT or training application process. The intent here for AIFT is to provide more flexible and accessible funding for the training of apprentices, filling a role similar to RSI funding for CAC apprenticeship programs. The reimbursement rate is equivalent to the rate established under Section 8152 and 79149.3 of Education Code for RSI funding. For 2025, both the RSI and AIFT rates are set at $10.32 per training hour per apprentice. So entities eligible for this funding are LEAs associated with the training of apprentices for an IACA apprenticeship program. Here's some examples. It could be a K through 12 school, county office of education, regional occupational program, a community college, a CSU, a UC, or an adult education program. So it's important to note that an LEA can only be reimbursed for training through one of the following methods: AIFT, full-time equivalent student, FTS. Apportment is administered by the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Related and supplemental instruction funding, RSI, again, is administered by the CCCCO. If the LEA is a CSU or a UC and is charging tuition to any entity, they are required to reduce the tuition charge by at least 80% of the amount of AIFT received. So these three funding sources, only one of them can be used to fund hours of training. And if an LEA is receiving funding from FTES or RSI, it's not going to be eligible for AIFT. The steps to apply for AIFT are the same as last year and very similar to the application process for AIFS, except a fiscal entity designation is not required for AIFT, since there is no committee. So getting that CAS report is still required for AIFT. If the LEA that's applying is not the program sponsor, they will need to work with the program sponsor to get this report, with the LEA listed as the recipient of the funding. If the LEA is working with more than one apprenticeship program, they'll need to obtain the AIFT CAS report from each program for which they want to apply for reimbursement. So the fiscal reporting, similar to AIFS, the expense report should categorize expenses in the previous calendar year that demonstrate how they support the cost of the training. The instructional costs, the expenses should be under the instructional cost category. That should be 80% of the total expenses, and educational administration costs should be no more than 20% of the total expenses. Some examples of those administrative costs could be mapping competencies to education pathways and credentials, administration of transitioning courses to 4-credit college courses, administration of courses and apprentices enrolling in classes, or reporting apprentice training hours to DAS. All right, so now we're on to the award framework. So different from previous rounds, there is a maximum award limit that eligible applicants that can receive. For AIFS, It is a maximum award of $2 million. For AIFT, it is $2,000 per program they are supporting. This means that an LEA applying for AIFT can receive more than $200K if they're working with multiple programs. Applicants do not have to alter the eligible funding amounts on their CAS reports if they are more than either of these caps. This cap is going to be conducted as the application is evaluated, meaning that it'll be altered as we process the application here at DAS. So it's expected that the funding requested by applicants this year in total will be greater than the $22.3 million available for awards. To provide funding to as many applicants as possible, DS will lower the award amount for all of the awardees proportionally to that difference. Again, you don't need to alter the amounts generated from the report. This reduction would be done after the applications was submitted, and then it'll be communicated in the award letters. This is the main reason why all of the applications need to be submitted by April 17th. There's that hard deadline, because if a proportional reduction or adjustment needs to be made, to do that, all the applications have to be submitted and evaluated at the same time. So here's an example that I came up with to kind of explain how that reduction could work. So again, this is fictitious, just for the purposes of this presentation. Let's say there's a San Bernardino Valley Transit Authority, or SBVTA, is applying for AIFS funding. Their apprentices enrolled during 2025 participated in their program for a total of 3,045 months worth of time. And they completed 12 apprentices in 2025. That 3,045 months divided by 12 months in a year, again, that prorating times the 3,500 per year of apprentice attendance gives us an eligible funding amount of $88,125. There's 12 completions times $1,000 bonus per completion. That's $12,000. So those added together mean that the applicant, SBVTA, is eligible to receive $100,125 in reimbursement funding. And their eligible expenses are $103,250. So that's more than the eligible funding amount that they can receive. So they're eligible to be awarded that full amount. Now, let's say the total of the award for applicants for this round that have applied to AIF is $25 million, but the remaining fund available is only 20, which means that, no, there's a typo there, not reduced by 80%, my goodness, reduced to 80% of their original amount. So that means that all of the awardees will have their award reduced to 80% of that original amount. So this example, SBVTA, will be reduced from the $101.25 to $80,100. And again, that would happen after their application would be submitted and detailed on their award letter. One more look at the application award process. The application needs to be submitted, including all the materials we outlined today. DAS will evaluate all the applications and send correction notices if needed. Then an award letter would be sent to the awardees that needs to be reviewed, signed, and returned to us, and then payment issued to the fiscal entity designated on the 204-205 forms. So our next steps is, if you haven't already, you want to review that AIF guidance document, especially for the changes in the award framework, to make sure you really understand that. Then enter any additional data you need to and generate your CAS reports. Sign up for the office hours on the 3rd and the 17th, and submit your application before April 17th. All the details are listed on our webpage. And I really just want to emphasize that my team and I are dedicated to trying to help all the applicants receive the funding and get the support that they're eligible to receive this round. So after all that, we made it to the Q&A. Thanks for hanging in there. So we got 156 participants, so I didn't chase anybody away. So now we can go to a Q&A.
Yeah, haven't seen anything come up in the chat. So go ahead and please feel free to. Yeah, have
So
you seen
Jean-Marie, all of
Yeah.
the questions are in the Q&A. The chat is disabled. So all the
Oh,
questions are in the
Yeah,
Q&A. One question
thank you.
that I've seen recurred a few times, so I'll just start off with that, Jean-Marie, while you take a look through those, is there's been a few different questions about whether the funding will be available for programs that are 2026. And right now, the available funding will likely be utilized in this round 4. We're forecasting how much we think will be utilized in this round 4. But as you heard from Ben, we are expecting that this funding will be fully utilized in this cycle. So AIF for next year, it would be dependent on the budget that will be finalized. And so further funding would need to be allocated to DAS for AIF to continue to exist. So that is uncertain at this point, but that's been, I saw a few of those questions, so I just wanted to address that one. And hopefully my sound is working better than the last time I came off mute.
No, I could hear that. The question that I see that's the first one here is, we are a nonprofit training center. Do we qualify under AIF training? Can we apply for both AIF support as well as AIF training?
Yeah, so if you're listed as the LEA for the apprenticeship program, then you should qualify. You need to be the program sponsor, the registered program sponsor, to qualify for the AIFS grant as well.
And I just want to clarify that for the AIFT side of things, you need to be a local education agency, which means some branch of the public education system. So based on just the framing of the question saying that's a nonprofit training center, I'm going to assume it's not a branch of our public education system. So probably not eligible to directly receive the AIFT, but if you are, as Ben said, if you are the registered program sponsor, and then you had, in order to do that, you had to have an LEA that was associated with your program. So it's going to be the local education agency that will apply directly for the AIFT funding. But it is possible your apprenticeship program is working in collaboration with them, that funding could then be shared with you based on the agreement that you have between your two entities.
Thanks, Adele. Adele, the sound is a little choppy. You might try turn off your camera, and that might,
Yeah.
it's like solid and then it cuts out for a little bit. So
we have a question here. Are licensed BPPE plus accredited WASC private post-secondary institutions that provide related instruction as a multi-employer sponsor eligible for AIFT?
you stumped me on that one.
I can help, Ben.
Yeah, please.
So it's going to be a very, very similar answer to the one we just gave, which is that private schools, which is what all of those acronyms mean in like quick summary, are not eligible to directly apply for the AIFT. However, if you are a registered program sponsor, you had to get registered by partnering with a local education agency, and that would be the entity that would apply directly to the funding, and then they could potentially share that with your organization if you're the one actually delivering the RSI. So it's going to depend on that agreement. But in terms of the eligible entities to apply directly to the AIFT, it does need to be that local education agency, which is some branch of our public education system. Did that work better connection-wise with my video off?
Yeah, no, the sound is better that
Okay,
way.
okay.
Um, let's see. Are DOL approved sponsors eligible to apply for the AIF funding?
So you need to be, the requirement is that you're registered with DAS. You're registered with the state of California. So I believe some programs have a DOL registration and some have a DAS registration, but those are independent. So you want to make sure that you're registered with DAS, or that the apprenticeship program is registered with DAS and the sponsors register with DAS to be eligible.
And to follow up to that, how do we verify we are registered with DAS?
So you should be able to go to the DAS website and look up your registration. And if you get stuck, you can always email contact DAS or even email the AIF inbox, and we can help you verify or at least point you in the right direction.
Got it. Um, we are a DAS approved sponsor. We are a for-profit corporation. Are we eligible to apply for AIF? The RFP says that we are. We just want to reconfirm.
Yeah, you don't have to be a nonprofit to be eligible. You have to be registered.
Great. And is there a list of educational institutions that are looking to partner with employers? And is DAS able to connect them with schools, connect those schools with the employer?
Ooh, I'm not. That's a great question. A little bit outside of my
Yeah,
scope operating just on the funding. Adele, can you jump in, please?
yeah, yeah, I can help out. Absolutely. So we do not have a list of educational institutions. However, if you are, I'm trying to deduce who the asker is on this. Like, are you an employer? Are you an educator? But we have a whole program team that are there to help develop apprenticeship programs. So certainly you can email the address up on the screen right now, and they can help connect you. But I would also point you to the contact us page for DAS. And we have, depending on the sector that you're working in, we have programmatic leads for healthcare, for advanced manufacturing. And so you can reach out directly to the programmatic person who is associated with the industry that you're working in, and they can try to help play a little bit of that connective tissue for you to potentially the different partners education you could be working with in developing an apprenticeship program. So we definitely have a team to support with that.
Great. Let's see. I have a question. If apprentices are registered with California DOL, can we participate in AIF? And I think there's a little confusion about because the Department of Labor would be federal and DAS is the California apprenticeship system.
Right. So if you're registered with DAS, then you're registered with the state of California. Those apprentices are registered with the state of California, and if you meet all the other requirements, you should be able to participate in AIF.
Right. Let's see. Please clarify AIFT. Can a program sponsor or intermediary apply for the AIFT funds and pass along the funding to the LEAs?
So the program only LEAs can apply for AIFT. An LEA, if it's a program sponsor, can also apply for AIF S, but a program sponsor cannot apply for AIFT just because they're the program sponsor. It has to be a local educational agency.
Great. Um, let's see. Are there or will there be any reimbursement funding for any programs that start for 2026?
So again, as the chief mentioned, we're forecasting that this is going to be this this round of funding will use up all the remaining AIF award funding. And in that being the case, there's not going to be funding for any future programs or when there won't be any future rounds of AIF, unfortunately.
Well, It's dependent upon the budget.
Yeah.
So um,
Right.
there's we cannot declare one way or the other. It is dependent upon the upcoming budget as to whether there are future allocations made to DAS for the sake of AIF. So if that's something that's important to you, go forth and advocate for that, because this otherwise this would be the last round of AIF if there is not further funding allocated.
Right. I can only speak to what has been allocated.
Right. Let's see. A next question. If an apprentice's wage meets the city minimum for only part of 2025, would we still be eligible to apply? For example, if they were paid $19 an hour for 2 months in 2025, which is below the city limit, but then paid $20 an hour for the remaining of the year.
I'm
I
happy to.
believe,
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
please.
Yeah, we look at the wage at the end of the year. So please, when you're adding the wages, please enter like the most wage in 2025 for that apprentice, and that's what we base the eligibility on. So in the scenario you just presented, yes, they would be eligible as long as they were receiving a wage that met that ETP threshold by the end of the 2025 calendar year.
Okay. Let's see. We have apprentices who started in 2025 under US DOL Apprenticeship Standards while we wait for DAS approval. They will continue in 2026 and we will add more. Would we be eligible for this round or should we wait until next year? Sorry, I didn't read that all the way through, but I do believe that that was just answered. So please, uh, we don't know whether or not it will be funded, but if you would like to continue to see this funding, please make that known. Can an apprentice be part-time?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I mean, it calculates the months of their participation, right? So it's just the funding calculation is just going to calculate the total amount of time they participated.
Someone is asking if we can go back to the slide about CAS reporting. I wasn't clear about the reporting, they say.
Sure. Let's
Let's
go.
just bring that slide up. I'm not sure what the
Yeah. So this one, this is for the LEA. So it's a similar. It's accessed in a similar way through an online like web analytics portal, but for AIFT, um, the LEA would have to work with the program sponsor to get access to that information because the program sponsor is the one that has access to the information online. And basically, it's just a report that's generated and then downloaded and submitted as part of the application.
great. I see a question here about youth apprenticeships, that they're granted an exception from having to pay the ETP wage through their DAS registration process. And is there an exemption to the wage requirement for youth apprenticeships so we can qualify for AIF funding?
I do not believe that there's an exemption for youth apprenticeships. All the apprentices have to meet that ETP requirement.
Got it. Um, let's see. We are also a nonprofit sponsor with national sponsor for biomedical equipment technician. Looking for a partner LEA. Is there a resource that would help connect us? Again, I'll just repeat what Adele had said earlier. Please look at our contact us page on the DAS website. We've got emails for consultants who are in each sector or industry, and those folks can help you out with finding those partners and making those connections. We are a county office of education. We train medical assistants, phlebotomists, dental assistants, and CNAs. Could we be eligible for funding reimbursement? Our students all go through externships.
I'm not familiar with an externship. County Office of Educations are eligible to be LEAs if they're the LEA, if they're the LEA for a particular apprenticeship program.
Yeah, it sounds to me like this is a potential program. If you're using the terminology externship, it sounds like you maybe have not yet registered as an apprenticeship
Mm.
program. But if you are interested in doing so, the broader DAS team is certainly here to support and go to that contact us page. Um,
Let's see. I have a question here about pre-apprenticeships, and will pre-apprenticeship programs be eligible to apply if they are under DAS?
It has to be an apprenticeship program.
So no pre-apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Um, would field technician, IT roles, and life sciences roles qualify? I believe that the answer to that is yes, if it's
Yes.
an apprenticeship. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, the answer would be yes. Again, just that apprenticeship program would need to be registered with DAS. But that sounds like from the description that it meets it fits into the IACA definition.
All right, we do have a few more questions here. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I
Oh,
thought
I
I
didn't
heard
hear
somebody.
this.
I
Nope.
thought I heard somebody answering.
Not
Are
yet.
there, let's see, are there any trips to Sacramento required for agency training or a general meeting?
Um, I'm going to take that to mean it's like a participation in this formula funding and AIF doesn't require any trips to Sacramento.
Got it.
Just submission of the application materials and, you know, uh, prompt communication if we send a correction or you have questions.
Um, let's see, somebody says apologies if they missed this. They didn't hear their question being answered live. I'm unsure that note in is in regards to my question or sorry, could you advise if we would be eligible with a DAS file number, although pending registration with active apprentices? Ah,
So you have to have had active apprentices during the 2025 calendar year. Um, yeah, you have to be registered apprenticeship program, but this round of funding is for apprentices, expenses related to participating apprentices for that 2025 calendar year. So if you didn't have any registered apprentices participating, then you wouldn't have any expenses that would be eligible for reimbursement.
right. Let's see. We posted our standards in December. AIFS is only available for apprenticeships operating in 2025. Sadly, the answer, I believe, is yes. That if they posted their standards in December, that they're not eligible
Yeah, I
because,
don't think they're going to have any apprentices participating during the 2025 calendar year, unfortunately.
yeah, unfortunately. Um, let's see. We are a nonprofit CDFI. Do we qualify as an AIF support as a nonprofit?
Again, you can be a nonprofit. I'm not familiar with CDFI, but you have to be the program sponsor, right? And there's a lot of different types of programs that can fill that program sponsor intermediary, as Adele explained earlier in the presentation.
Let's see. I see a couple of remaining questions, like if the presentation will be sent out. And I don't believe that this presentation will be sent out, but it is being recorded.
yes, we will post the recording of this webinar on the AIF page. So if you wanted to
That's what
go
I
back
thought.
to something,
Yeah,
or if you wanted to share this with one of your colleagues, yes, this is being recorded and we will be posting it on the AIF page.
Great. Just got a couple more minutes here left. Another question about a program submitting registration paperwork, but they're still waiting for approval. They have the DAS file number, but it's still pending. So unfortunately, no, the apprentices need to be active in order to get that reimbursement. Let's see. Regarding requirements for reimbursement for apprentices served in 2025, would these apprentices also have had to have been placed with an employer in 2025, or is it acceptable for apprentices to have been trained in 2025 and placed with an employer in 2026?
I know employer placement is that needs to be part of the apprentice's registration. So if their registration is updated now and they're placed with an employer, I think that would be okay. Adele, can you verify that or make sure that
Yes,
I'm
what we're
understanding correctly?
looking for is for folks to enter information about their apprentices now, and as long as they have been placed with an employer, um, then they are eligible. But if they're still in that firm agreed to train status, then they will not be eligible.
Got it.
Thank you. That was my thought.
Um, let's see, where are I'm looking for an LEA to replace the trainer currently in place. Any recommendations? Again, for any kind of recommendations like that, I would really encourage you to go to our contact us page and reach out to a consultant there. And otherwise, I think that, oh, we are a nonprofit, CDFI. Do we qualify as an AIF support as a nonprofit?
Um,
I think we already answered that one.
yeah, I think
Great.
so.
Sorry. I thought we did too. So I think that that's it. I think that those are our questions. So we have 3 minutes to spare.
Well, thanks everybody so much for sitting in with us and listening to my long explanation of all the wonderful details of AIF. I'm um, excited to meet you all and talk with you more going forward as we work through this round of funding.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
A, a reminder just is posted on the chat. The link to the portion of the DAS webpage that deals with AIF directly, that'll have the dates and how to register for the upcoming office hours on March 3rd and the 17th. And also a copy of the inbox specifically for AIF. It's AIF at dir.ca.gov. This is the first step of a process, and we'll stay in contact. We'll work together and have another fourth round of funding for this great program.
Yeah, and I just to wrap up, just want to reinforce this. This is we hope that this is a supported application process because this is formula funding and not a competitive grant process. We are able to support you throughout the process. So please do use those resources that Ben just mentioned. We have the office hours, we have the inbox. We aim to be here to be in support. And so reach out to us so that we can help you get all your materials together. We want to get this funding out to you all so that you can continue to scale your apprenticeship programs and to serve more apprentices and more employers and keep doing the great work that you're doing. And we try to make this process as supported and simple as we possibly can. So thank you so much for dialing in. Thank you to Jean-Marie and Ben for this through. Apologies for my connectivity. I'm glad we've been able to make it through all this content and all of these questions. And thank you, everybody, for the great work that you're doing in expanding apprenticeships across so many different sectors.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Great.